I remember the first book I read. It was called Tippy. Our kindergarten teacher assigned the book and gave us a week to read it. I ran home and read it cover to cover on my mom's lap. I was so excited and felt a great sense of accomplishment. I thought it was so cool because I knew how to read. For some reason, before I knew how to read, it felt like reading was the ultimate thing that separated older kids from younger kids. If you could read, you were smart. Ironically enough, years later, even when I knew how to read, I still felt a great sense of separation. Somewhere along the line, I started struggling with reading. It was not easy, enjoyable, or fulfilling, and actually grew into my arch nemesis. I ended up not being a very good reader. I couldn't focus, I couldn't retain information, or even comprehend what I was reading. My eyes would race across the words and I would see them, but I would not register what the context of what I was reading was. I was clueless. My response to being a weak reader was a great deal of insecurity. I did have a couple of other things working against me though. My parents divorced early on in school, so I contained a boatload of anger, confusion, and emotions built up inside me. Anytime I wasn't good at something, I would start a snowball effect of frustration and usually end up quitting. The main thing that I failed at was reading. Thus, the main thing in my life that frustrated me was reading. Every time I would read, that snowball effect of frustration would just build and build. In my school, we received a letter grade based on AR points. You had to read to get points, and if you did not read, you didn't get points. And without points, you would fail. I would often fail in reading, which really stunted my academics as a whole. It's hard to look at my academics and say I was doing well when I had an F in one of the subjects. If that wasn't enough, in my hometown and among my friends, receiving an F was strongly looked down upon. Annually, I was ineligible in sports and sometimes up to 2 weeks for basketball. This was the ultimate punishment. Basketball was my absolute strength and reading was my absolute weakness. No matter how good or how hard I worked at basketball, I was held back by reading. This is where the separation came in, which I discussed earlier. My friends would all go to practice, play in basketball games, and enjoy the sweet love of the game, but I was left on the sideline with my books. I should have responded by reading and working harder, but my ineligibility only grew my frustration and hatred for all books. I would do only the bare minimum possible to be able to play sports, which I think was about a C-. I continued through elementary school and middle school to do poorly in academics, hate reading, and do the minimum to get by. I was known to myself, my friends, and to some teachers as a slacker. My skills in reading remained the same too. I could never seem to comprehend what I read. I would have to read things over and over to grasp even the big picture of what I was reading. It seemed like a battle that could not be won. I went through my schooling feeling like a different species than the rest of my friends. I felt as though I had a handicap and could never amount to what they were. It was hard to enjoy school at all. Once I got into my junior year of high school, something changed. My sister introduced me to a personal Bible. I'd heard the Bible read from the Catholic Church I grew up in all my life, but was strongly uninterested in that book, just like I was in most books. The Bible my sister had, though, read and seemed much more relatable than the one the man on Sundays read. At some point, I acquired my own personal Bible and started reading it, and to my surprise was amazed at it. I would read it and retain the information. I was able to focus on it. I was even able to like what I was reading. The more amazing thing was that I read it nearly every day. Before I would go to bed, I wanted to read it. I could comprehend what I read and I would remember it the next day and the next day. After this happened, I slowly was able to strengthen my reading muscles and was able to read and understand more and more books. Once I got to college, the world of articles was introduced to me. Normally this would have killed me, but I was able to read articles and even comprehend what the blazes they were talking about. I'm still not the best reader, but I've improved drastically since my youth. I think when it comes to reading, it is like lifting weights. The more you do, the stronger you get. regularity and retaining that occurred in high school helped me become a better reader. I don't know how I was finally able to read and actually didn't even realize that I was doing it right away. I think reading is crucial to academics and strengthens every area. It trains you to think, to write, to speak, and even to imagine. Getting discouraged with reading is something really easy to fall into. I think if reading isn't your thing, you just have to find something you can read. Find something that you enjoy reading that you can relate to. Lighten the weights a little bit, enjoy that for a while. Then as you start to get stronger, put some more weight on. Find something that you can read regularly.